The mistake that we made is that when we did something that meant people were going to come out of the woods and the streams, we should have identified at that point where people could go and not go. Mm-hmm. And we didn't do that. We didn't manage the public spaces, the shared spaces, the way that we should have.
So the Austin Mayor, Steve Adler, was on the Joe Rogan Experience about a month ago discussing the homeless issue in Austin, Texas. And quick side note, I am currently based in Austin, Texas. And yeah, man, that's I know like a lot of places in America right now, there's there's been a big influx of the homeless situation, especially with like, companies like BlackRock buying out all the single family households and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so right here where I live, man, there's an encampment on the other side of the, literally on the other side of this field right here. They walk through and, go through our trash cans over here. And, you got to do what you got to do. We're not trying to shame anybody, but I do run out on them. Be like, say, son, get from around my trash can. I'm paranoid, but yeah, just give you an idea of what, it's a big issue. There's a lot of tent cities around here and probably in your city, too. So I want to use this as a microcosm of the bigger issue. And they kind of talk about some of the solutions that we were able to implement for specific groups of homeless people. And he'll get into that. But I just want to watch this with you, and I'll come back on the side and talk about it. So let's do that.
We need to get people off the street. So what the council did was we said we made it work with veterans, and then I tried to scale up what we did with veterans, but I couldn't get the resolve to spend the money. And part of the reason is because people didn't see the challenge. So there'd be some neighborhoods that were willing to do it. I knew as sure as the sun was going to come up the next day that this was now accelerating in our city. So what we said was, we're going to maintain the ordinances that say if you threaten public safety or public health, you can get arrested and ticketed and put in jail, because that's important. If somebody's doing that, they should be arrested and ticketed and put in jail. But if they're not doing that, if all they're doing is surviving, then it is inhumane to either put that person in jail or to force that person to live down in the streams and in the woods, because it's an even worse place for them to be. So why
is it a worse place for them to be camping in the woods than to be camping on a public street?
Well, one, you don't want anybody camping in a public street either. Right. So that's not a solution to the challenge. You can't have that happen either. But if somebody is in the woods or down by the streams, they're not interacting with anybody else. So you have hundreds of women that are getting assaulted every night as the price to be able to live in that environment, because they're secluded and they're not safe.
So you mean if a homeless woman moves to the woods, she's in danger because there's no one around her to protect her?
Unless she picks a protector. Unless she picks a protector.
She's not in a community of homeless people. And so this is one of the reasons why these people gravitate towards these places like that 8th Street underpass, because there's a lot of them together, and there's a sense of belonging.
It's public and they can see it. Our health officials can find them. Right. We're now vaccinating our entire population of people experiencing homelessness because we can find them. The mistake that we made is that when we did something that meant people were going to come out of the woods and the streams, we should have identified at that point where people could go and not go. Mm-hmm. And we didn't do that. We didn't manage the public spaces, the shared spaces, the way that we should have. So what the council did that summer is we said, okay, we're going to decriminalize it, because every person who, in 2016, thereabouts, we wrote like 18,000 tickets. And as you imagine, very few of those people ended up in court the following Thursday to pay their fine. They end up bench warrant issues for their arrest, and then you can't get, 6 months later, they have trouble getting a job or an apartment because now they have a criminal record. Right? So we said we're just not going to do that anymore. But on the same day we did that, we asked the city manager to come back with a set of rules that would say, okay, so we where is it that people can go and can't go? And for lots of reasons that never happened, and that's where we made our mistake.
So if you could go back and do it all over again from the moment you got into office, what would you have done differently?
Well, What we did initially in terms of with the veterans was real successful. I would do that again. It proves up the model.
Can you explain how that works? Like, what did you do exactly for the veterans?
Well, veterans are a little bit easier because they come with resources. So they come with what are called VASH vouchers from the federal government, which is support to help do rent supplements. But then it was reaching out to everybody in the city that had apartment buildings, big managers of apartment buildings with these vouchers, and we would say, would you take in these vets? And people were willing to do that. We had some landlords that were suspicious of it and say, I'm not going to do this because if I take someone like this, they're going to trash out the place. And when
Right.
they leave, it'll take me 6 months to evict them. So I got together with some private businesses and the like. We created a risk fund outside of city government. And we put it into the community foundation. And we said, if you take a tenant and they trash out your place or create a problem, you call in the morning, you get a check in the afternoon. All the landlords said they don't believe me because it's city. It's going to take you 5 months. I said it's not in the city. It's privately funded. We're doing it outside the city.
That's a great solution.
It was great, and it took trusting the landlords that they weren't going to be making claims unless they actually had problems.
So you start with this. You take the veterans. You have this these vouchers. You bring them into apartment buildings. You get them places. That's step one. So now they have a roof over their head. But how do you help them clean up?
The service providers in the city all said, because we all got everybody together and we said, let's get to equilibrium with veterans. So which means that, you can never end homelessness, but what you can do is get to a place where the rate at which you house people and they come out of housing back to life is the same rate at which they show up experiencing homelessness. I said, let's do that with veterans. It was part, again, of a federal program.
What percentage of the homeless folks are veterans?
I think it's probably right now about 6%, something like that. I think the number was higher back then because we had more veterans on the streets. But the service providers all came in and said, okay, if you can house vets, if you can find places for them, we'll start prioritizing them for giving them services.
All right, so that was again, Steve Adler, mayor of Austin, speaking about the homeless situation and what some of the solutions and complications of doing that were for us here in Austin. Now, there's two main points that he was talking about, two main modes of solution he was talking about. It was, getting people housed and what to do after the housing, like Joe brought up, right? And I want to speak on both of those because some of the stuff he's speaking on is a little it's very situational, right? So if you notice, he said they were able to get housing for a lot of the homeless vets out there, which was only 7% of the homeless people left in Austin were homeless vets. But that's that means that 80% or of the other of everybody else, there were still a lot of homeless people. Just the bulk of them were no longer vets, right? So that's a very situational thing. People were more, of course, private businesses were more likely and more willing to help veterans, due to, the whole, our country's huge love for the military, right? Which is, great for them. But, when you start speaking on homeless black people, people of color, right? There's a history of distrust and stigmatizing them. So, a solution like that wouldn't work for them, right? So I guess going back to the housing part of it, obviously, we need to house these people, but what would be the best way? I think what was lost here in translation and talking about it and any conversation I hear about homeless people, because it seems like there's nobody who was actually homeless that's really there's no big voices that were actually homeless, right? There's, most people advocating for homeless have never truly been homeless. Let's put it like that, right? Or if they they still had a support system. There's levels to this stuff, right? So me speaking, I have been homeless and with no support system. So there's a lot of things you learn, right? You start to notice power dynamics a lot. They're a lot more present and they're a lot more important, right? It's something you may not have noticed if you ever live in somebody else's house. That's why after a while it always falls apart, because there's a power dynamic. Even if that person's a good person, after a while they want you out their house, right? Or, if you're leaving dishes in their sink, even if it's just one dish a week, after a while, just because if you had a house, they wouldn't be there leaving dishes in the sink. It automatically breeds resentment. And those are just little things that, I've learned over the course of my life, and learned, how to navigate other people's houses. So that's actually problem number one with the housing issue. I think what people I think it may sound counterintuitive, but the way to house homeless people, and of course, who else than me is going to go start talking about co-ops again, right? But housing cooperatives is the answer for homeless veterans, and there's a couple reasons why, right? It's accountability, responsibility, right? Saying those are things that you got to imagine as a homeless person. There's not a lot of that, right? And what I mean by that is when you're homeless, there's not a lot of responsibilities that you have to take, and have to take into account. Like, if you have there's less reasons to be productive members of society. And that you could also take that. This is also applies with the street life. My boys out there banging and stuff, right? Being a black man in America, when you're limited to opportunities to actually, be a member, a full member of society, you know what I mean? Like you start searching other places where you can find that respect and that, that sense of community, right? A lot of homeless people don't, they're doubly, screwed on that kind of sense. So, what better way to develop that sense of responsibility in somebody than actually like, hey, cooperatively, you all, let's, if we set up programs for them to, for ownership, you know what I mean? And, that kind of responsibility will actually, it's just as human, it's human nature to, like want to actually try to, step up to the plate and be a member of society. We're social creatures, right? So that is, that's a big thing, right? Another thing is, we don't take into account a lot of times the complications of not ever being stable and consistent, right? It's something I speak on a lot because I notice people are, whether you look in the comment sections of most videos and stuff, people don't realize a lot of people are just like, well, why don't you just, everything's always, well, just do this. Well, why don't you just go get a job and just do this and it's just like, well, obviously you have had the benefit of having a stable childhood and having consistency, having a parent there to make you sit down and brush your teeth. Like imagine if that's not how you grew up, right? Imagine if that consistency, that, that regular schedule as a child, was not a thing. And then also isn't a thing as an adult. And so your whole life, there's been no stability, no consistency. You can't expect somebody who has never even consistently brushed their teeth, to suddenly, be able to get up at a certain time of day and go to work and just, do all these consistent things that, their life's, roller coaster up and down. And now, this is speaking from experience, right? You know what I mean? A lot of stuff that people find to be regular, easy, like you don't do like stuff for me that took a long time for me to develop, like, because as a kid, I could do whatever, latchkey kid, I was basically running, my mom was I could run the streets basically, when I was younger. And, there's a lot of, I had to learn that consistency, stability. What helped with me a lot, and especially this co-op is another example of what really helped me. Like that responsibility, that accountability. People relying on me, like me feeling like I matter, right? If I don't do what I need to do, I let people down. And that accountability, that responsibility, helps me to keep going, even if I'm, like that's some of the aspects of human nature and when it comes to people that we don't think about. And also, people make mistakes, man. People got, like I said, when you ain't been consistent and stuff, you're gonna mess up, we gotta give people room to screw up, like I tell this to everybody I know, all my boys I knew that was really thugging out in the streets. Like there is a very small, minute few of them that are still out there. Most of us, that was really thugging out here now got kids, working jobs. We just living life. We were younger, screwing up, and white families, white kids, they get to have their rebellious, learn, understand life, make mistakes stage. For people in the black community or somebody that's homeless or somebody that gets a criminal record, they don't. A mistake they made when they were younger is something that follows them for the rest of their life, and they can never really grow as a human being, as an individual. Like he was saying with criminal records. That's something else that we, until we end the drug war, homelessness is always going to be a problem too. Cause, something else that, if you literally can't get something in your name, that's by definition, you're homeless, right? You know what I'm saying? Like I've had that issue my whole life. My record, it's hard, borderline impossible in a lot of places, situations for me to get anything in my name. So, that just really limits the ability of me to, literally live, right? So those are just all aspects of, that I, wish we take more into account when it comes to speaking on the homeless situation, the homeless problem, some of the solutions, like I said, cooperative, homeless people, you got to know that yeah, there are some people that are going to fall through the cracks, and I look at it like, you know, taking more cycles to wash. Sometimes, you know, everything don't come out in the wash the first time. Sometimes you got to go back through. Some people, if you know, whatever system that's developed, that's, you know, actually, you know, gives people ownership, actually, you know, march people in the direction of accountability and responsibility, and, you know, actually being, you know, saying somebody, you know, like giving people the opportunity to be somebody that, you know, can be relied on, right? You know what I'm saying? Like programs to help people, you know, whether it be even pets, like, you know, my 2 cats, love my kittens to death, and they help me. Like, I don't know if I would get up as early as I do, you know, if my kitties weren't like, say, son, we hungry, man, you need to get down here right now. You know, like they, you know, that accountability is like, I got to get up, I got to go to work, you know, my kitties don't eat, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's, you know, that's kind of stuff that really, you know, that we don't take into account, that needs to be more taken into account. And yeah, man. So that's pretty much the most of what I want to say on the conversation gets a lot deeper, and, you know, I didn't go too far into the political side. And the only reason I've been, you know, I think we on the left, we lack what we lack speaking on is the personal agency part of life that the right kind of has in a headlock, and in the wrong way, if you ask me, right? You know what I'm saying? They look at it, they speak on it kind of almost like it's all just personal agency. You know, it's, you know, don't blame anything else for any of your issues. And, you know, obviously it's more nuanced than that. You know, there is things we can do, you know what I mean? But it doesn't have to just be you. We can, you know, saying we can work together to, you know, and without, you know, the assistance of, you know, the government, for real. Like, you know, because I don't think you don't get anything. I think that's a wasted, you know, effort for now, until we get our stuff, you know, communities get our stuff together, and get more of that sense of like being able to fight for each other. Because another reason, I know I'm getting off in the weeds, I'm in this right now, but another reason I think that, you know, a lot of, it's hard to get general strikes started, protests, kind of things like in that nature. It's kind of hard to get people mobilized and ready to go, is this whole individualistic idea of society that, you know, has been manufactured in America, right? Everybody's I, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's looking out for oneself. We, you know, people believe that, you know, just if I just focus on me and get my work done and do this and do that, and I'll be able to make it here. And it's just like, you know, it's really not true for the vast majority of us, but, you know, we've been, you know, programmed to believe that. And that's, you know, that's something that I hope to combat on the left, as far, you know, and we can, you know, get to that point of like, you know, have our Jordan Peterson-esque, you know, awakening, you know what I mean? Like, what I mean by that is the, you know, where he's talking about like cleaning your room and stuff. Like, you know, a lot of people gravitated towards that because there's that aspect of like, you know, nobody wants to, I don't want to wait on no politician that I don't know or trust to, you know what I'm saying, try and help change my life. Now, what can I do? You know what I'm saying? Because I know I'm going to do something, right? You know, and that's kind of the, you know, what I want to, you know, bring to the left, as far as like, yeah, no, we can do something, bro. We can do something. We ain't gotta shout and scream and ask them to help us. No, me and you, we can go, you know what I'm saying, over here and get some stuff popping, bro. What's up? You know what I'm saying? Because they talking. Well, I ain't with all that talking, bro. People that know me know about that action, right? You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I just want that energy is missing on the left, in my opinion. And, you know, saying not in, you know, and protesting and things of that nature when it comes to, you know, certain social issues, that we do have that energy. But when it comes to the economic side, we don't, you know what I mean? And I'm like on team, like, let's get it, bro. You know what I'm saying? Let's get to the money, bro. Let's get to the ownership. Let's get to the equity, right? So yeah, man, I'm gonna leave it at that. If you like what we're talking about here, make sure, again, you know, check out the co-op, MartyandtheBro.com. Check out the YouTube channel. And yeah, I'm gonna leave it right there. Austin Mayor Steve Adler talking to Joe Rogan about the homeless problem, man. Interesting. You like what you just saw? Make sure you like, share, subscribe, so the algorithms can algorithm or whatever sorcery they do. Follow us on our socials, links all down in the description, and let's keep rocking.